more people will be starting to join. Thank you, everyone who's come to help launch our 40th anniversary year of the Forbeck Foundation. This is, you know, a really exciting time and obviously also, a difficult time to recognize that it's 40 years of losing a person, but also a remarkable thing for us to be able to say we've done 40 years of amazing things for cancer research and turned a horrible tragedy into a legacy and something that's benefiting everybody. So thank you for everyone who's able to join us tonight. We have a great mix of our scientific community that's going to be joining tonight and supporters. I will do a brief talk about the foundation and what's going on. We have a few speakers, and then there will be a Q&A as well. So I hope you'll be able to stay with us for the full hour and learn more about what we have going on. So just to update you on what's going on with the foundation for about 20 years did one forum a year. And then for about 15 years, we did one scholar retreat per year, and we had 4 scholars per year. Now the foundation is up to 8 forums per year. And just in this year, we will be doing 13 forums in 2025. And we will be talking about some of the special meetings why we went a little over our usual number of meetings, because we had just exciting opportunities we couldn't resist. We'll talk about those as we go through the night. We now have 2 scholar retreats each year. Whoops, I bumped my screen. 2 scholar retreats, one in the spring and one in the fall, to accommodate all of the Forbeck scholars. Every year now we have 16 scholars, not just 4, but we have scholars that attend every forum, and we have a competitive application process for that. So there are 16 scholars every year. One of the goals of the foundation was to get people to converse outside of their institutions and their labs and outside of the country. So this is one year where we really started to realize that we've really achieved a global community with our forums. We just had a meeting on addressing disparities, and there were attendees from Uruguay, Brazil, Australia, the UK, some others I'm forgetting. And it is wonderful to see the global expansion and building more community across the entire globe. So we're pretty proud of this, besides the fact that it's a pretty picture. A little just summary of the numbers over the 40 years. We've had 125 forums and retreats and focus meetings. This number, I feel like as soon as we put them down, they're out of date, but we think this one's pretty accurate right now. About 125 forums, over 1,000 participants from over 30 countries. We've had 5 Nobel Prize winners attend from various forums. And we've had 2 directors of the National Cancer Institute. We've been trying to quantify what the foundation does, and we find this to be a really difficult task, but we've started doing just some survey monkeys. And so these bullet points are just from a recent survey. And so we can actually start to quantify and get people to respond on things that have come out of their attendance at a forum. I think it could be pretty remarkable, because we only got maybe a 3% response rate on our surveys. And just from that, you can see people reported 9 clinical trials, 5 people started new lines of discovery or changed their research, 3 people changed treatments for their patients, 43 collaborations and 24 publications, and 7 grants started or submitted. And this is pretty remarkable for skimming the surface of 40 years of history. we don't really have the capacity, since we're a small organization, to go and mine PubMed or something. So this is how we're just starting to try to create a little database to track some of the things that have come out of the foundation. And we're going to start a little incentive program, since we were a little disappointed to only get about a 3% response rate. And we're going to have a form on our website for people to go and submit whenever they publish a paper, they do a collaboration, or any sort of results that have come from something that came from a Forbeck forum. And we're gonna start bribing people by giving out some swag for people who submit this forum. So stay tuned. You're going to hear about this soon. So we hope, and if you think of anything even now, just send an email. Always let us know of things that have come out of forums you've attended. There's a lot of other kind of side projects that have happened from the foundation. Modeling just even from the first meeting and the staging system that was created from the first meeting. Then that went on to create the International Neuroblastoma Research Group, which then we helped to provide the seed funding that the research group created the database. That then also became an integral piece of the Pediatric Data Commons. So that's a project that started 40 years ago at our very first meeting and continues to thrive and be something that's a gift to all sick kids out there. The formation of the Society of Functional Precision Medicine. Tony Latai had a forum of, I can't even remember how many years ago now, but this was one of the byproducts of the forum that Tony Latai chaired. And we helped kind of get this organization launched. And to this day, Aaron is still involved with all sorts of projects for them in that. We have dabbled in some granting. The granting we've done, I think, has been really amazing. We've had some great collaborative research projects that we did. And during COVID, when we couldn't host forums, we decided to redirect the program funding and do grants then. And we did the COVID recovery grant, which helped our scholars whose research might have been completely stopped during COVID, and to help restart it or make sure it could survive the pandemic. And then we did a follow-up grant from that, the accelerator grant. So these are just some side projects that we've done. We've loved the granting we've done, but as a small organization and with the funding that we've had, we decided to kind of stay in our own lane and keep doing forums. We'd love to be able to go back to doing some of these projects, but we'll see when that happens now that we have so many forums going on. We could not do all of this without our scientific advisory board. We have been incredibly fortunate to have, all for the 40 years that we've been in business, a really incredible, passionate scientific advisory board. Just to mention that 6 out of the 11 board members here were Forbeck scholars as well. And we'll be hearing from another person that was on our board that was a Forbeck scholar as well. But we'll get to that in a second. But we're really grateful for the scientific advisory board that we have. So as we're at our 40th anniversary and we have so much going on, we are going to be doing a lot more. You'll see a lot more of us on social media and events. This is something we haven't been great about, but we have to meet our funding needs with the higher demand for meetings that we have. We are getting more and more requests for forums, and hate to say no to anything, but we are limiting ourselves right now to 8 forums per year. We're trying to, except for this year. And then, of course, with more forums, we have more scholars attending as well. So there are 2 scholars for every meeting. So that's a lot of scholars attending each retreat. So we need those sponsored as well. We consistently have tried to operate in a tight budget. We have a very amazing team with only 2.5 employees and some contractors that work with us, and we keep this thing running with a very, very tight machine. You know, the majority of our funding, of course, goes to funding the forums. And, you know, when we started this, a forum cost $15,000, and now it costs about $40,000. That, as you can see by the pie chart, is lodging, travel expenses, food for us to gather these people together. One of the things too that makes it hard for us fundraising is the time span that research takes. So talking about the neuroblastoma staging system, and something that happened 40 years ago has now resulted in the pediatric data commons, which we're a part of. And although we don't do a ton of stuff with the neuroblastoma community right anymore, we're part of the foundation of the things that are going on now. We've had meetings in immunotherapy and targeted cell therapy for 30 years. And now we are excited to see that this is becoming a reality for treatments for our family and friends. I recently have had a family member go through an immunotherapy clinical trial, and great results and decreased toxicity. And the view looks a whole lot better than when my brother and my father were sick, and the treatments could have killed them faster than the sickness and the cancer. So although it's taking a long time, we're excited to see that progress is really happening. And then the ever controversial microRNA, we started having meetings on that in 2007, and we just saw Victor Ambros get the Nobel Prize for that, and continued discussion about this topic that we've started almost 20 years ago. So it's a hard thing sometimes for the Forbeck Foundation to get people excited when research takes a long time. And for our scientists out there, I'm preaching to the choir, you know this. So now we wanted to introduce our speakers, who hopefully can express much better than me why the Forbeck Foundation is an exciting thing to be part of, and what their experience has been with it. And I'm particularly excited to introduce our first speaker. We had a little change up of speakers today, and due to the change in administration, there's a little shakeup going on right now, and we lost a speaker, but we gained a speaker. So we're sorry that Stephen couldn't join us tonight, but we are very excited to have Kim Rathmell back into our fold, and hope to be able to see a lot more of her, since she has been incredibly busy being the director of the NCI for the last couple of years. But now that she has a little free time, we're so excited to have her here, and I'm going to pass off to Kim Rathmell.
All right, great. Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, I'm really excited to have the opportunity to talk about what the Forbeck has meant for me. So as you heard, I am the most recent director of the National Cancer Institute, but the journey to that actually really is very intertwined with the Forbeck Foundation. As you can see on the screen, I was a Forbeck Scholar in 2004. So that was just as I was starting my laboratory, and that's when scholars are plucked. And this is when there was one meeting a year. So I was very fortunate that the meeting was a topic that was relevant to the work that I was doing. And I was also very lucky because I was in the first group where they started having the retreats. And so we got to be both a part of the scholar retreat for the first 4 years of my early facultyhood, but also a part of helping to shape that, and even to sit down with the leadership of the Forbeck to talk about what that could mean. I want to just talk about the first meeting for just 1 minute, my first meeting, and to say it's a very, very special experience. So the Forbeck brings together outstanding basic scientists, but also other people who maybe a little bit of a stretch, or maybe have a lot of stretch out of the field. In the meeting that I went to, there were people who were legendary in oncogenes and tumor suppressors, the genes that make cancer work. And there were chemists, there were mathematician modelers, there were people who were very far outside what I knew, even though it's a small group of people. And then there were 4 of us who were scholars, who were just getting our laboratory started. And to be there with people who would go on to win Nobel Prizes and who were luminaries, and they gave a talk just like we gave a talk. And it put us on this even playing field that we had not ever appreciated before. The Forbeck also really encourages these meetings by putting very different people together to have you think very, very broadly and to really push boundaries and not feel compelled to just talk about what you've been thinking, but what you might be able to think and synergize together with this other group of people. So I came away from that meeting truly excited, thinking that the project that I had come in with was pretty good, but what it could be was really excellent, and made me do experiments that definitely changed the trajectory of my laboratory and my career. And then I got to come back the next year, and you were there with yours for the retreat, and I came back with my peers who were in my group. A year ahead of me was Ned Sharpless, who would go on to be the NCI director as well. So our peer group was a pretty exciting group of people, but they would also bring in, again, these luminaries who were our mentors. And so you had the chance to think really carefully about what your research was doing. How were you thinking big enough? And could you really push the boundaries? And I'm a kidney cancer expert. Kidney cancer was not it was a disease with no effective therapies, that we thought we knew what one important gene was, but we didn't know how it really worked. And so it was over those years, every time we'd come, we were learning more, the field is learning more. Let me just tell you that today, and this is because of meetings that are like the Forbeck, getting people thinking really broadly. In kidney cancer, immunotherapy is very, very effective. We have strong targeted therapy, and together the targeted therapy and immunotherapy can be effective and even cure many patients with this cancer. We learned some of the foundational underpinnings of that cancer, and now have a drug. At the time that I was at that first meeting, would have been considered to be targeting an undruggable target that we now give patients routinely to keep their cancers from growing. So it's completely changed the whole experience for patients with kidney cancer. I went on to be a mentor for another retreat for the Forbeck Foundation. I also hosted 2 meetings. One, a very clinical meeting about a rare subtype of kidney cancer. That meeting led to the development of a foundation for that rare tumor type, the establishment of a community. There's now very solid biology for this very rare tumor type. There's a community forum for it. It's again changed the trajectory for that cancer type, a rare tumor called renal medullary carcinoma that only happens in young people who carry a sickle cell gene. And then I had another meeting that was very basic, that was focused on histone biology. So really focused on how DNA structurally orients within a cancer cell. And we had, again, a very diverse group of people, and got us thinking very differently. And 2 really pivotal papers have come out of that work. I need to be better about responding to Jamie's surveys and making sure that you know what things came from that work. And so, so the Forbeck has had a big influence on me. I was proud to be tapped as a scientific advisory board member until I became NCI director and had to step down. But the one other thing I wanted to say about the Forbeck is that, especially as NCI director, but even in my life before, these small focus meetings with very different groups of very different people, forced to interact with a small amount of data. So just a few slides, just encouraging people to think, is a model that I've applied all over, because I think it really helps to get people thinking that kind of blue sky, how they can achieve what might be impossible. So I think that the Forbeck brings that together, along with elevating young people and making them realize that their ideas are powerful too. So I'll stop there. But I'm a fan, and I think what the Forbeck has done is really, really just transformed our field.
Thank you so much, Kim. I'm so excited that hopefully you'll have a little more time for us. She had to leave the scientific advisory board when she became the director, and so we've missed her terribly, and I hope we'll get her back. Next, we're going to hear from Gráinne Owen, and she is the executive director of Curing Kids Cancer. And she has an amazing story, and we're doing some really great collaborations that I want her to tell you all about.
Okay, thank you so much, Jamie. Delighted to be invited to join in. My journey with pediatric cancer started when one of my twin sons, Killian, was diagnosed with leukemia. He was 5 years old. Luckily, they were not identical twins, it was just limited to Killian. But we started on a journey that we never expected to go on. And I had 4 boys in 5 years. So coping with cancer treatments was extremely difficult at that point. However, we got to almost the end of Killian's treatment within 6 months. And we were about to start planning our celebration for the end of his treatment. And he relapsed. And at that point, as you probably all know, we had to go through a bone marrow transplant. And as it turned out, even though they were not identical, Garrett was a perfect match. His twin was a perfect match for a bone marrow transplant. Got to 90 days post-transplant, and Killian relapsed again. And at that point, the doctors took us to one side and said, there's nothing else we can do. And he's had all the chemo and radiation he can have, and we don't have any other treatments. I wasn't ready to give up at that point, and neither was Killian. They told us to go and make some memories at Disney, which we did do, although that was the most difficult thing I've probably ever done in my whole life, because while we were there, we had to smile and pretend we were celebrating the fact that Killian had got through his bone marrow transplant, when in fact we knew his time was limited, and it was difficult, to say the least. However, one of the things that I did while we were there was to do some research and discover that there was a brand new type of treatment called a targeted therapy, which was being worked on at the National Cancer Institute. And it was called BL22. And it was Ira Paston who was working on it. And I managed to find out the names of the doctors who had been doing the research. And one of them was Irish. I used my Irish mafia background and found out, excuse me, that I could in fact get in touch with one of these doctors, and he pointed me in the direction of Alan Wayne and Lee Hellman at the National Cancer Institute. We managed to get Killian up there. He was given special permission by the FDA to be the first child in the world to try BL22. However, because he was the first child, the FDA limited the dose he was allowed to have. And he would have needed at least twice the dose for it to be effective at the stage that he was at. But Alan Wayne took me to one side and said, well, we've tested a second generation of this drug in the lab on Killian cells, and it would be 11 times more effective. And I said, great, give him that. And he said, we can't. And I said, well, why not? And he said, well, because we don't have the money to get that drug out of the lab and into treatment. And at that point, I remember thinking, why on earth did he tell us about something that could save our son's life, but that we can't have? However, we had to take Killian home, and we lost him. And I was talking to my boys on his first anniversary, and I suddenly remembered that drug that was stuck in the lab. And that was what made me decide that I had to do something about the other children and the other families out there who were also losing their children, and perhaps we could stop that from happening. So we started raising money in 2005. And since then, we've been able to raise over $30 million for research. So it's our 20th anniversary this year. And we are thrilled that we were able to give away $1.8 million in December to fund research. We only keep 3 months of operating expenses at the end of the year. So we were always looking for new opportunities to fund research and different ways to fund it. And we try and stay very flexible about that. That was one of the things I insisted on when I founded the charity, because I know there are so many different ways that people need funding to get treatments out there. And it may be they need a research nurse. It may be they need money for the development of the drug in the lab, or it may be they need money for, the actual treatment itself. So I came across the Forbeck Forum, and Jamie reached out to us, and we managed to talk about what we were doing. And I agreed with Jamie on practically everything she said. We were on the same track. We had the same mindset about everything to do with research. And I was thrilled to be able to go to the forum in Monterey on nanotechnology in February of last year. And I was so impressed by the way that it was run and the collaboration and the cross-discipline work that was going on, that we talked to Jamie about funding a forum. And what we've come up with is actually 2 forums. We had a family come to us who 2 of their daughters had leukemia. One was a survivor who didn't have too many problems. The other has an extremely difficult life because of the after effects of her treatment. And they said to us, we would love to do something about that. So I talked to Jamie, and we decided that that was a subject that we could do a forum on. So we came up with subsequent cancer risk after pediatric cancer, which is the first forum. And then the second one is going to be technology to advance care and outcomes for pediatric cancer survivors. And I am extremely excited about this because I feel like there may be a way to mitigate a lot of the current symptoms that the children suffer from. And if there's any way we can do it, it's certainly through a Forbeck forum. And I feel like, this sort of cross-discipline work is essential. As we go around the country and we meet with our doctors whose work we're funding, we discover that there is a lot of synchronicity between all the different things that are going on. And we have been able to put doctors in touch with each other who are doing projects, but to be able to actually have a forum where they can sit together and discuss what they're doing, I think is going to be really wonderful for this particular topic. So many of the survivors have after effects that are devastating. And I feel like we can do something about that. So I am a huge fan. We're hoping that not only will we do these 2 forums, but we can go on to work with Jamie in the future as well. And very much looking forward to doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, we are calling it a series. When we started talking about this, it's such a giant topic to tackle. We didn't even know where to start. And so these kind of rose to the top of what we could tackle first. But then there's just a long list that Gráinne and I have talked about, the things that we can address. The other thing we want to mention to everyone from the scientific community who's on, we have on the screen, as she mentioned, they have a lot of grant opportunities. So do use them as a resource. They're wonderful people to work with. And you just reach out to Michaela, who's super fun, and she will help you figure out what to do. So thank you so much, Gráinne, and we're excited for this fall. And your 20th anniversary and our 40th anniversary, it's going to be an exciting fall.
Yes, yes, it's thrilling that we're both having such great anniversaries, and I never thought I'd get to a 20th anniversary. So for us, it's very special, and I can't believe how much you've done in the last 40 years. It's amazing. Congratulations.
Great legacies for short lives lived, but profound things coming out of them. So it's very exciting. Yeah. Next up, we have Doug Green. Doug has participated in several forums. He's come as a mentor to the retreat. He's now going to be chairing a meeting this fall, and he's always fun to have in a meeting as well. So I'll pass off to him.
Thank you, Jamie. It's such a pleasure to be here and to hear these amazing stories. This is so great. I want to bring a perspective, my perspective, what I have experienced at Forbeck Foundation forums and the scholar meetings. You know, as a discovery scientist, I go to far too many meetings, probably. You ask my wife, she'll tell you it's too many, all over the world. And the forums held by the Forbeck Foundation are unique. And there's a reason for that. You know, I've come to realize that when we meet as scientists internationally, bringing together scientists from all over the world in most other meetings, we talk about the past. We get up and we say, look what I've done previously. Look what I discovered. Look what I found. And people ask questions about it. Oh, did you try this? Did you try that? And we argue about it and we have discussions. The Forbeck forums look towards the future. We're only given a few minutes to talk about, let me tell you about what I did. I'll show you one or two slides. Now we spend the rest of that time talking about, what does this mean? Where's that going? What's the new insight we're going to gain from that? And regularly, people say, you know, we've seen that too. We didn't think about it that way. And now synergies happen, exciting new developments emerge. It is a forward-thinking kind of meeting, a forward experience, as opposed to viewing the past. For example, my career largely has been spent studying how cells die. You know, I'm not the only one. It's a rather large field. We want to know, how do we kill cancer cells? Why do cells in our body normally die as normal part of cellular turnover? But what goes wrong with that in cancer, that these cells persist and they form tumors? And that's been the focus for decades in this field. We realized that of the millions, actually, of papers that have been published that deal with how cells die, people rarely ever talk about the ones that didn't. You know, we report, we treated with this drug, 97% of the cells died. Nobody ever has really focused on, well, until recently, focused on what about those few cells that didn't? What's going on there? And we've come to realize that this is a real problem that directly relates to why some cancers relapse following treatment without gaining new mutations, without taking on new properties, but instead having gotten into a state where they persist rather than resist. And that persistence is now opening up a whole new field. It is a paradigm shift in our field. There's only a dozen, maybe more, 15 labs in the world that have really focused on this and have very different perspectives. And now we have an opportunity to bring them all together who are experts in cell death, experts in cancer relapse and minimal residual disease following treatment, and this phenomenon of persistence. We're going to hammer it out and say, where are we going with this? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? And what should we be thinking about? And that's the spirit of the Forbeck Forums. It's the spirit of the foundation. It is the spirit of scientific discovery. And that's what we do. So thank you to Jamie and the Forbeck Forum. And I'm excited about our next meeting, but also everything that you guys are doing. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Doug. He's like infectious when you get to hang out with him too. So thank you for being here. Next up, we're going to have two of our kind of current, recently graduated Forbeck scholars. Just real quick, we are going to have Peter Winter, who has just graduated as a Forbeck scholar, but also will be chairing a meeting in the fall on AI and cancer, which is going to be very interesting. And I'm sure there'll be lots of questions about that after.
Great.
Peter?
Thanks very much, Jamie. Yeah, I actually wanted to start maybe with a little bit of my experience as well as a scholar, as a recent graduate of the scholar program, where actually I met Zuzana, who's on the panel here as well. I had actually a very similar reaction as Kim did at her first meeting, where here I was as a middle to late stage postdoc. And all of a sudden, I found myself in a position where I'd been accepted to come to a meeting where it was every luminary in my field that I respected, and I was expected to get up there and give a talk on my ideas. I had a lot of certain nervousness about getting up there in front of this group of people that I actually really respected. But what's great about the Forbeck meetings is that they create this safe environment to have really important dialogue. And so I got up there and I realized that my ideas were treated just as similarly to Ira Melman's, who was in my groups, right? We had really great discussions about the pros and cons. The ideas were stress tested, whether or not you were a middle to late stage career or a very early career, as mine was, and still is. And that was a very a leveling feeling, and it helped me, I think, get over a lot of this feeling of imposter syndrome that I think we can all feel quite frequently as scientists. So as far as personal development, the Forbeck Scholars program was really important for me as well. I think that it was transformative in my ability to kind of see my ideas and their place among people's ideas that I truly respected. So I really appreciated that opportunity. So for our upcoming meeting, it actually came about at one of our scholars, I think one of our dinners or something, where I think Jamie and I don't remember the SAB, I can't remember. I came up to me and said, does anybody know anything about AI and cancer, or just AI in general? Because I feel like it might be important at some point. And I was very lucky that actually I was cross-trained as a wet lab scientist, but then I came to the Broad Institute and MIT to learn bioinformatics. And so I always kind of had this push-pull between my wet lab tendencies and really wanting to learn more about what computational tools can do to enable a more efficient searching for therapies and the streamlining of the cancer research process in general. So I said, yeah, I know a few things, and more importantly, actually, I know a lot of people who know way more than me, and so I think it'd be really fun to get a team together to discuss this. So as a part of my position at the Broad, I actually run a group. I'm the director of this project called Ex Vivo, where we look at, it's a partnership between the Broad Institute and Microsoft Research New England, where we essentially look at cancer models, patient wet lab models, actually, and attempt to align them better to patient attributes so that we can use them for more efficient drug discovery. And so what's one of the operations in our group is to take really large data sets of patient patient samples and take really large data sets of cancer models and align them to one another and understand how they can be used for more efficient drug discovery processes. And so when we were sitting down to figure out, when we started this group, it was a lot of these questions of the wet lab scientists kind of talking past the computational scientists. And so that got me thinking about actually what the value proposition has always been of the Forbeck scholars, which is let's put together people in the same room who actually have maybe disparate expertise, but really have a common goal. And I think that's what really got me excited about putting together this meeting that we're going to be launching now in October of 2025. So yeah, I would be really happy to take any questions at the end of the discussion today. And I, again, owe a lot of my personal career development to a lot of the opportunities that the Forbeck Scholars Foundation actually gave to me. So very happy to be here.
Thanks so much, Peter. Yeah, I know you're going to probably be a target for lots of questions. It's an interesting time and topic. Okay, Zuzana Tothova is another Forbeck scholar. There we go. She's also attended quite a few other meetings. We should have looked at some of the other meetings she's attended. She's very enthusiastic, and so I was requested to attend a lot of other forums, and I just love that. So Zuzana.
Thank you so much, Jamie, for having me. And it's been wonderful to hear all the inspiring stories that people have shared. And Kim said at the beginning how these meetings are really transforming science. I would say that for me, knowing and being part of this foundation has been life-changing in many ways. As a very young investigator, when I first joined the community as a Forbeck scholar back in 2019, joining a meeting that was focused on leukemia and leukemia stem cell biology, a topic that was very near and dear to my heart. About 6 months into starting my lab, I had this amazing opportunity. And then the pandemic happened. And it was actually quite amazing to see how even that short amount of time that we spent together as a community in that Forbeck meeting actually inspired new collaborations and contact with people during the time of the pandemic, thinking about ideas outside of the box, continuing to give each other feedback on our work. As Jamie mentioned, I was definitely one of those scholars who absolutely fell in love with the concept of these meetings and took every opportunity to attend additional meetings. I attended 2 other meetings, one on splicing biology and one on transposable elements and the dark genome. And these meetings actually really influenced the direction that my lab has taken scientifically. And it's because of these meetings that I now have half of my lab working on transposable element biology, that I get invited to meetings I would have never thought of being invited to because of the connections I made during that one Forbeck meeting, and have also been a generous and very lucky recipient of mentorship from people who attended those meetings, including one of the scientific advisory board members who's on this call, who I would get to see at these meetings, as well as all of our retreats. One of the things that I wanted to highlight is that I feel really strongly about the influence that what the Forbeck Foundation does and the impact that it has on scientific community is much stronger than giving individual grants. The fact that you're bringing in people from different institutions at different stages of their career development, people who are clinicians, people who are scientists, who would attend meetings together, but actually not go to the same sessions at a meeting. These people are now brought together in one room and spend 2.5 days discussing science and its clinical implications really deeply. And the kinds of work that comes out of these meetings, the collaborations, the grants and papers that Jamie has mentioned, are priceless, and it's not something that you could really achieve by giving an individual grant here and there to support that kind of creativity and really continuity of the work. And then finally, as Kim mentioned, I think the way that whoever had the genius idea of setting up the meetings with 5 slides and really deep discussions with limited data, that has really influenced how I train people in my lab, how we train junior investigators at our own institution who are about to go on the job market and give their chalk talks. That, you know, being part of the Forbeck Scholar and telling people this is how we're going to do it, I'm one of the Forbeck Scholars, is just such an incredible honor. And so my plaque that I received at my very last scholar retreat is up there on the wall next to my medical school and graduate school diplomas. And I'm just so proud and honored and feel incredibly lucky to have been part of this community.
Thank you so much, Zuzana. That's, you again, infectious enthusiasm. I love it. Thank you. And so now we have time for some questions for our panel, if anyone's interested. And so if you want to submit them through the Q&A, Marla and Aaron are monitoring that. And in the meantime, until somebody else asks a question, I have questions. So one of the things I just wanted to round back on is I'm going to go to you, Gráinne, first. And I know on our call, I'm just kind of looking at the list of people on the call, that we do have quite a few of our Forbeck scholars, as well as other researchers. But I just want to urge again for them to check you all out and the grants you have available. Would you be able to elaborate a little bit on the kind of grants you give?
Yes, absolutely. Contrary to what Zuzana seems to say, we do actually research our grants extremely well, and we get to know our doctors. We have actually had a big impact on research, I'm pleased to say, and that is because we do have a direct relationship with the people whose work we fund. So we have various different ways. We have the electronic system by which people can submit grants, and Michaela can tell everybody exactly how that works. But you can do that actually through our website, which is curingkidscancer.org. And then you can pull it up and you can actually access it through there. You can contact us directly, because I believe that knowing the impact that different aspects of research can have, not just your straightforward grants where you fund, you know, the researcher's work, but all sorts of different aspects of how you get drugs into therapy. So anybody is welcome to contact us and, you know, explain what they're doing, and we will consider. We have our medical advisory board. We also have a committee that meets as well. And we pride ourselves on being very flexible about what we fund. So it's not just the sort of thing that you would be able to fund through an NCI grant. It's much broader spectrum than that. And I feel like that's why we've had so much success in what we do. For example, when Todd Cooper set up his clinic at Seattle Children's, he needed money to do genetic testing up front, and we were able to provide that for him. And that's not something he would have been able to apply, you know, for a grant for. I think I mentioned before, a research nurse was needed in order to bring in phase 1 clinical trials to one of the hospitals we were funding, and we were able to do that. So there are many, many different ways that we have funded different aspects of research, not just the standard straightforward handing over of a check for a project in the lab.
Okay, so again, on this information, or if anybody needs the information, or just go visit Curing Kids Cancer, you guys can find that resource. And we love having collaborations with other organizations. We encourage scientific collaboration. So us as a foundation, we love to collaborate as well. And so we're excited to be collaborating with Curing Kids Cancer. I think Lisa Spadali is also on the call, and she fundraises by doing Walk the Lake in Lake Geneva in the fall in memory of her daughter, Kira. And she's directly funded some of the work we've done with DIPG and other things. So if ever you find an organization out there that wants to collaborate with us, we do love to do that too. So, and I'm looking forward to the future work we'll do with Curing Kids Cancer. One question, maybe we'll try it. We're going to go pretty easy on Kim here, but I thought maybe you could just talk over the years. I mean, any of you, the scientific panel here can talk to this, but NCI funding has gone down tons over the years. What do you think the outlook for NCI funding for research is going to be?
Oh, I thought you said that was going to be an easy question. Yeah. Well, I think, it takes foundations like this in partnership with the NCI. It's still the biggest funder of cancer research in the country. And there are, a wide array of ways that we need to fund research, from very foundational basic science discoveries. Every drug that's out there started with a discovery experiment, but it takes lots and lots of that to get to there. But we also need the kind of funding that is focused on a particular disease and can put all of the different pieces on that. I actually loved that you mentioned DIPG. I think that's a really great example of actually how complicated this all is. The basic science of that comes from lots of NCI funded research. There is a new and very exciting treatment out there that's uses cellular-based therapy. And you talked about CAR T, and that work came from very different angles, supported from foundations, NCI, and ideas generated at the Forbeck, and then foundations that are very disease-focused, that have for a long time really thought about the nuances of a disease like DIPG. And so the fact that there is exciting new and promising opportunities on, not just on the horizon, but like really there. I mean, that took all of it together to be able to get there. And so, I guess your question was, am I still optimistic about the future, really? And I very, very much am.
I was thinking more of NCI funding, because we've seen the funding level. It's trying to go easy, but you went the bigger picture. So, but that's good.
We're still waiting on a budget this year. It's still a continuing resolution, so we've got to see.
Right. Good point. Okay, there's another question for you, which actually is interesting, because Stephen Chanick was supposed to be speaking tonight. And one of the reasons we really wanted him to be here too is he was the first Forbeck scholar ever. And from attending that forum, he got his job at the NCI. So the question that just came in was, what does Kim deem as the greatest impact the Forbeck Foundation had on her ascent to heading NCI?
Oh. Yeah, I don't know if I have one answer, and I'd be curious what other people's answers are for their careers. I got to know a lot of people. My network developed very early. So that's definitely a component of it. I do think that it's the way that it helps you think big and think broad, and to engage people from very different fields. That didn't hurt at all in terms of the kinds of skill sets that were needed to move into the role. So I think it would be hard to imagine that I would have taken the path that I did without some of the experiences of the Forbeck.
Yeah.
I want to make one plug, because you may not have a question that really lays it out, but as you know, Jamie, I'm such a fan of the way of thinking. I've been talking it up at the NCI, so much so that I had several NCI people talk to you about how does the Forbeck forum really work, and then you were gracious enough to invite them to come and see for themselves, because it's it's a very different experience, as everyone else on the panel has described as well. And so we really want to, kind of replicate that as much as we can in various different ways where it makes sense to.
Yeah, and we were so grateful for that too, because you sent Tony Dickherber to the meeting in the fall, and he was a great asset to the scholars, I think, talking about how to approach the NIH and NCI and strategies on going through that process. So that was really beneficial, and I was hoping we'd have someone in the spring, but I don't know what'll happen with that now, but we'll see. Another question, and I'm not sure if any of you have an answer to this or an idea. Someone asked, how can the scientific community support the future of the foundation through awareness and fundraising? Any volunteers?
I think what you just said, actually, Jamie, was very significant, in that you could invite people to come and attend a forum, because it's so impressive what you do. And the in-depth discussions and the different aspects of the subject that get discussed. And I think also pointing out all of the things that you did at the beginning of your presentation, all of the things that you've achieved over the years. I think, blow your own trumpet a little bit, social media, get it out there, get the message out there that you are making a difference, which you are. So, I think if the scientific community can sort of talk to people about you, maybe parents who want to help, or, I think that would be a great thing. As speaking as a parent, you feel so useless sometimes, but that would be a great thing that they could do that is not totally out of reach. I mean, I think $40,000 for a forum is actually very reasonable. So that's just my 5 cents worth.
Okay. How are we doing on time? I think we're pretty, there's another question, but it kind of leads into kind of our summary. So I think we'll kind of lead right into summarizing. In summary, the foundation is extremely strong scientifically. The foundation is strong financially, but we do need to improve our fundraising. We can't quite keep up with the level of programming that we are doing right now. So this is something we're going to be having to be more active about. So you'll be seeing a lot more from us. And if anybody ever has any ideas, we'll have another slide talking about ways to get involved, but please reach out to us. And this was a question I thought about rounding back, but it could be a giant one to tackle for the panel of what progress are you seeing in cancer treatments now and survival rates? Do any of our panelists want to kind of touch on that? Because I'm feeling hopeful about the progress in cancer treatments right now. So I see Doug shaking his head. Maybe, do you want to touch on that?
Well, it was at the first Forbeck meeting that I went to that a practicing oncologist who treated lung cancer patients said, I need to tell you about what my life was like until recently. This is what I would have to tell my patients, that we'll do everything we can, and we hope we can give you another year of life. And he said, that's all changed. I have patients who are being cured. And that it was one of the huge breakthroughs that we've seen in the last 15 years or so with cancer immunotherapy, which is coming on very strong. But I think there's so much on the horizon. As an immunologist, I'm excited about cancer vaccines, personalized cancer vaccines as the next potential breakthrough in this area. But I think with our other experts who are here and your experience, I know that with the efforts at the Broad and new ways to screen drugs or look for cancer dependencies, identification of new ways to stratify cancer to understand how a particular cancer can best be treated. This is coming on almost daily. And when I talk to family members and friends and who have family members who are worried about their current state of health because they have a cancer, I tell them, be positive. There are new breakthroughs weekly. So yeah, this is efforts like this, the kinds of discussions that we have at the Forbeck forums are bringing out completely new approaches, and it only gets better.
That's very encouraging. And one of the things that I thought was interesting, Gráinne and I have talked about this as well, where we were so focused on just trying to get people to survive that now it's been interesting thinking about these survivor meetings. And an organization I volunteer that teaches skiing to kids with cancer. Now I'm around all these kids that are surviving and seeing all the problems that they have as survivors. And so even as we're seeing, progress in curative rates, the next thing is you have to have improved treatments, because the lifelong issues they'll deal with from the treatments are the next issue. So the battle goes on, and the Forbeck Foundation is in it for the long haul. And so we hope you all will continue to stay tuned for our 40th anniversary year. We have an event coming up. So someone was asking kind of how to get involved and levels of donations. So we'll go into discussing some of these things. But the first event coming up, which I think is going to be particularly fun, is a toast to 40 years. And we have a wine edutainer who's going to do 40 years of wine to go along with 40 years of history. So that'll be on April 10th in Lake Geneva. We have our first half marathon coming up in June. This is going to be a very intense event for us. We need volunteers, we need runners, we need sponsors. So please reach out to us. We need lots of resources for our first ever half marathon. And we have the usual events, the annual golf outing. We'll have walk the lake for Cure of Faith. And the Blue Jean Ball is going to be a bigger event this year for being the 40th anniversary, and will not be at the same time as the retreat. So if you're a scholar that was looking forward to the Blue Jean Ball this year, it will not be in conjunction with that. But we'd still love whoever wants to come. There's another fundraising mechanism we're doing right now of 40,000 for 40 for 40. So we have a matching donation for 20,000. So every time you donate right now, your donation will get matched. And even we say, the size of the donation doesn't matter. If it's $40 to commemorate our anniversary, we're excited to get that too. I get touched by those $40 checks that come in too. It's really sweet. So there's that campaign going on right now. We do have plenty of sponsorship opportunities as well. We love when people sponsor a scholar. If you come to one of our meetings, you can actually meet your scholar. If you come to the Blue Jean Ball, they come for 3 years there. So you have plenty of opportunities to get to know your scholar and follow them. We are always hoping that someone will sponsor a whole forum, and that's 40,000, as you've seen. Our retreats are a little bit more expensive because there's frequently more people at those. So they're 50,000. And other partnership opportunities. And as we mentioned too, we've got the half marathon on the right here. You can register to run, you can register to volunteer, you can help us fundraise, you can be a sponsor for that. So we have a lot of opportunities. We've got the QR code in the bottom. And that is the end of our presentation tonight. And I'm so grateful for everyone who attended and our panelists for participating and answering questions. I feel like you got off pretty easy tonight, but there's never enough time. So thank you so much to everybody. And we look forward to hearing from everyone this year of our 40th anniversary. So thank you so much. And good night.